Before I start the video, I have exciting news to share with all of you. I am collaborating with the company Gimme Swag to create my very own Trip Keeper plushie. In the coming weeks, the process will get started, and that is where I will need all of you. Either in the comments below or in my Discord in the channel Plushie Ideas. The Discord link will be in the description below like always. Please leave design ideas like what it should look like, things that can come with it, if it glows in the dark, colors being used, the fabric, sounds that come from within, anything you can think of. No idea is a bad idea, so please be creative. We're thinking of having the iconic purple skull guy from my profile photo, but we will take any ideas. If you're an artist and want to submit a design for real if you have time, I will be more than happy to take it in for consideration. Just email me at thetripkeepertftt@gmail.com if you choose to do that, but I'm not forcing anyone to take their time to create a design if you don't want to. When the time comes, I will need you to donate just $2, that's right, $2, to get this plushie started, or else it will not happen. I'm going to need at least 100 people to do so. The amazing part about it is that your $2 will be credited towards the plushie when it actually goes up for sale. And if we don't reach the 100 people, you'll get your $2 back, so you really can't lose here. I am definitely going to work with Gimme Swag about the cost of it, as they have a set average price, but they notice my merch is way more affordable than most other YouTubers, so they'll be flexible with the prices I come to them with. The pledge will begin soon, like the beginning of February, but I will let you all know when it starts exactly. Furthermore, I will keep you updated with any new information when it comes available. So do not give $2 now, I will let you know exactly when the $2 is needed. Thank you all for your continued support, and let's get started with the video. I was put on Provigil to combat narcolepsy and chronic fatigue syndrome in 2006. At the same time, I was prescribed Wellbutrin, an antidepressant. I was put into a facility under observation while I acclimatized to the drugs. Nothing unusual was noted. I began to hear strange sounds in my environment, especially late at night, but did not think much of it since it was a hospital. A woman gave me a Bible and prayed for me, and suddenly I felt immensely better. I began to develop a fixation with the Bible and would sleep with it under my pillow. When I left the hospital, I moved to a city far away from my family to further my studies. Within a week, I had begun to see auras. I think it was quite nice really, and interesting, and I began to have the archangels visiting me, and I could tell them apart by the color and energy I sensed in the room. One day I went running and laid down on the forest floor. When I got up, my body was still lying there, traced in a blue-gray smoke. I could see details like my jawbone and teeth. It was like an X-ray, a blueprint of me. That was the last nice experience I remember. As it was later explained to me, the Provigil pushed my mood up and up, and the Wellbutrin stopped it from ever falling. I was on an exponential trip to Happyville, which went over the edge and didn't come back. Suddenly, my awareness of sounds in the environment turned into an increased noise sensitivity and a heightened paranoia in which I began to put together events based on the sounds in the houses around me which I could not possibly have heard. I had moved into a new house with strangers and began to believe they were Satanists and wanted to kill me or join their cult. I thought I could hear them chanting at night, reciting Latin prayers backwards or singing. Then they began to talk about me and how they were going to make me join. At night, I would wake up and hear them chanting. There were sudden hysterical giggling fits, and I identified various different characters and voices having conversations. As the weeks progressed, I would begin to see things in my room at night. I was terrified, all alone in a foreign city, sleeping on a Bible given to me by a stranger, which seemed to be my only support. Throughout this time, I became increasingly religious. I thought since I knew nothing about such things that my mind could not be making it up. One morning, I woke up at 3 a.m. and found the front gate open. The girl who stayed in the front room was not there, but her light was on. I thought I could hear her next door and that they were talking about how they were going to make me join and sacrifice babies, or kill me because I could hear them and knew too much. From that day, I lived out at the back of my car with a few clothes and toiletries. I believed they were following me. My life turned into a horror spy movie. I made long phone calls to psychics at remote telephone booths. One of them told me there was a book in my room that was being used as a focus by the coven, and I had to go get it. There had been a book when I moved in. I opened it. It had a horned beast on the inside cover and was the supposedly true description by a ritual murderer about how he set about killing his victims while possessed by demons. I burnt it. Things like this made me believe the whole thing was real. I had found another place to stay in the meantime, and when the same pattern began to unfold again, and when I still heard some of the same characters talking in the house next door, I knew it was me. I was going mad. Nothing like this had ever happened to me before, so it took me that long to accept it. After 3 months of active psychosis, I ended up at a psychiatrist's office. He immediately put me in a clinic and took me off Provigil. The roller coaster of medications he put me on is another story. Seroquel had me sleepwalking down the main road of the city in my underpants, after having scaled a 3-meter security fence in my sleep. An ambulance brought me back to my new housemates with cuts in my hands, and I tried to fight them off and run away. I have very limited memory of any of this happening. The Provigil permanently altered something in my brain. I still hear voices now and have paranoid thought cycles at night which seem inexplicable by day. Due to the intense trauma suffered from going to bed each night believing sometime in the night they would come to fetch me and kill me, and that I was under constant surveillance, after my nervous breakdown I eventually took myself to a mental hospital. The tests conducted on me there indicated that I had TLE, temporal lobe epilepsy, and the theory was that the Provigil had fired a continuous buildup in my brain, which caused me to have constant fits and hallucinations for 3 months. I also began to understand that somehow the Provigil had brought out all my hidden neuroses and turned them into massive obstacles and forces within a fantasy world I unconsciously already believed in. It was like all my greatest fears, expressed until then in subconscious paranoia, were suddenly blown open, symbolized, characterized, personified, magnified, and made real. In therapy, I linked the trauma of the psychotic episode to being bullied daily at school for 5 years. I learned things about myself I might never have tried to understand thanks to the psychosis. It also ruined my life, blasted my bank account, turned me into a person who continues to have a mental disorder I did not have before, and cost me unbearable shame, public embarrassment, and years of recovery, not to speak of lapsed career opportunities. According to the various psychiatrists that saw me, this could only have been brought in by the Provigil, although they could not actively explain it. The medication I take is similar to that prescribed to bipolar people, and I often tell people I am bipolar because it is easier to explain why I can't drink at a party, for instance, due to medication. In hospital, I did not score as bipolar on any of the tests they made me fill out. I am on lamotrigine by day, Integritol, and Risperdal at night. I am only too happy to take it because even though it does not work 100%, it takes the edges off of things like the severe depressive episodes I sometimes experience. I never been drawn to illegal substances and was not taking anything of that nature during this experience, nor was I drinking alcohol. I did, however, become addicted to sleeping tablets during this time, as I was desperate to control my sleeping patterns. Most of the time, however, the imminent fear of being killed was stronger than the sleeping tablet. I am a recovering drug addict/alcoholic who has been sober, or at least I like to think, for the past 7 years. This means I haven't used alcohol or narcotics, pot, etc. for the past 7 years. I was recently prescribed Provigil, Modafinil, at my own request. A friend who took it described it as a nice peppy buzz that gave him energy throughout the day. I also read that it was prescribed to pilots and people who travel a lot for jet lag, and I travel every weekend, often out of the country. I decided to try taking it at home first though and see how it worked. I work at home during the week producing music and thought it might be a nice creative edge to get me through some creative blocks, aside from its benefits while traveling. I don't know what exactly I was expecting, but was completely blown away at how this stuff affected me. This stuff is like cocaine in a pill, for me at least. Exactly the same high, just not quite as intense, but extremely pleasurable. I thought, great, I've just discovered a substance with no side effects that's not addictive, that makes me feel exactly like cocaine. I was floored. Talkative, calling friends, writing emails, and best of all, making some really amazing music. Then about an hour and a half after the high hit me, it turned off, instantly, just like cocaine. It was a feeling I hadn't felt in 7 years, since the last time I did hard drugs. Extreme depression, everything is bad, don't want to move or do anything, just want more of the drugs so I don't have to feel this horrible feeling. So I popped 4 more of them. The high came back and I continued to make music. It brought back a love and excitement for my craft that I hadn't felt in as long as I could remember. The problem was, I came down again. Now the problem this brutal come down presents is, I come down from the emotional and mental high, but I am still wide awake, so I am forced to stay awake and endure this horrible feeling and depression for 12 hours. To me, it was infinitely worse than the come down off speed. I ended up finishing my bottle of 30 Provigil in 4 separate crazy days of overconsumption. They were spread out over a couple weeks. Each time I experienced the same great, pleasurable, amazing cocaine-like high, and each time the come down got progressively worse. On one occasion, it was so horrible, I drank a bottle of Robitussin to knock myself out because it was so unbearable. And Robitussin was the only thing I had that I thought would do the job, aside from buying alcohol, which I luckily still had the self-control not to use. After finishing the bottle 4 days ago, I vowed not to refill it. It took me 2 days after my last use to get back to normal and have energy and motivation again, but I still can't stop thinking about it. I tried to make music today but had no creativity or spark. In fact, I can't imagine making music without Provigil now, even though I've been doing it for the past 7 years with great success, using no substances whatsoever. Now I am thinking I will go refill the prescription tomorrow in the interest of my career, so that I can have the motivation and creativity to make music again, and subsequently make money. But that come down is so brutal that I don't think I can handle it again. So I'm thinking I will go see a psychiatrist to prescribe me some really strong sleeping pills. That way I can take Provigil in the evening, then knock myself out with a sleeping pill or 2 when the come down happens so I don't have to endure it. If all of the above doesn't sound like addiction, I don't know what does. The fact that a bottle of these things cost me $270 doesn't even matter. I make a very good living, but the fact that I am now using a chemical to trigger my creativity on call does, and combining chemicals to bring myself up and then down is even worse. My hope in writing this is that it serves as a warning to anybody else with an addictive personality out there who is considering taking it. The scary thing is, I read all the reviews before I took it and still decided to do it. I read the review written by somebody else on here who had gotten hooked on it, and I did it anyway. Why? Well, it's listed as low risk by the FDA, low potential for addiction, and there were only really 1 or 2 accounts of people getting hooked on it. I figured it might be some kind of new super drug. It made you feel really good, but there was no come down. What I've come to discover from Provigil is that there is no such thing as the perfect drug. Anything that makes me feel that good is going to have a come down. It's just neuroscience. What goes up must come down. That dopamine has to replenish itself, and when it does, I get that feeling, that come down. It can't be avoided, and there is no drug in existence that can give me that high without the come down, and the come down is what makes me take more of it. Since I have been using it, I have resorted back to many of my old addictive behaviors. I have avoided family members while under the influence, canceled or missed appointments, and spent hours obsessing about the drug and how I could possibly use it sparingly to improve my life, which as we know is not possible for an addict. I have notes that I have written to myself while coming down off Provigil. They are all over my computer. Files with journal entries or notes, the most profound of which says, "It's not worth it. Don't refill the prescription. This come down is the most horrible feeling imaginable. Taking this drug will do you more harm than good in the long run." I read that today, sober, and still plan on refilling the prescription tomorrow. As they say in AA, insanity. Trust me, you do not want to mess with this stuff if you are an addict. I suspect there are thousands of others out there having the same reaction as me, but for whatever reason, they aren't writing about it. I would also like to add that I am a very emotionally/mentally stable person who has been living happily and successfully for the past 7 years without the use of any intoxicants. I add this because sometimes when I read reviews written by other people, I brush them off as unstable or just figure they have some kind of emotional issues and are having these adverse reactions because they are emotionally unstable. But I am not. I am, or was, a happy, healthy person who just got completely blindsided and set back by this supposedly harmless drug. I am a college student who's always used stimulants to help me study and focus better. Adderall, Ritalin, Dexedrine, Desoxin, coffee, everything except cocaine just because it wears off too quickly. I had used Modafinil before, but never in high doses. Exams were approaching, and feeling that I may need to cram a little, I tried to purchase a week's supply of Adderall. A week sounds like a long time to speed, and it is, but there are occasional naps in between and a lot of speed I can get through. Nothing was available, as in absolutely nothing, unless I wanted crystal meth. Not a chance. I was going to have to settle for something a little weaker, namely Modafinil. The night began around 6 p.m. and I took a couple 200 milligram pills. Felt great. Focused, etc. Around 9 p.m. I took some more, 10 p.m. some more, etc. By midnight, I was making pretty good progress and felt that I had the night under control. 6 to 12 a.m. was the best of the evening. My mood was great, focused, sharp as a whip. 12 to 3 a.m., I found myself having to take more pills than I expected, maybe 7 or 8. This progressed, and as my exhaustion increased, the pills did less and less. I panicked with the thought of the looming tests. I kept taking more pills to get through it, just until I finished the day's exams, I told myself. Then I would end up paying through the nose for a large supply from people who had Addy and just didn't want to sell it. By 6 a.m., I had taken 20 pills and started to feel out of it. My hands were shaking, I had a terrible headache, and I knew that I was losing it. I took a hot shower, and then that was the end of it. The heat of the shower, the 4,000 milligrams of modafinil, it was too much. I started puking my brains out. I was dizzy beyond imagination. My head was pulsating with pain. It was horrible. I proceeded to dry heave for the next hour or so. By 9 a.m., it was so unbearable. My first exam began at 8 a.m., but I didn't care. The pain was horrific. I felt an exhaustion beyond comprehension come over me. Tossing and turning, hallucinations. I thought I was emailing people about potato farms when in actuality I was tossing in bed, puking, seeing colors from the dizziness. I couldn't take it. This proceeded until 9 a.m. the following day. As much as I wanted to sleep, I could not. The pain was so horrible that I offered someone $500 for a couple sleeping pills to knock me out that were probably worth about $150. The horrific experience slowly improved, but it took almost 2 days. I didn't fully recover for close to 5 days and suffered academic disaster as a result. It was the worst experience of my entire life, and I will probably never touch another stimulant ever again. I just wanted to warn everyone that this is a possibility. I wouldn't wish psychosis on my worst enemy, so I feel compelled to talk about this experience. Articles about modafinil and psychosis have been posted here before, but the comments usually explain away the unlikelihood of triggering it for various reasons. Yes, psychosis can be caused by almost any drug. It is more likely when it's misused. It usually only happens to people with an underlying disposition or something like that. I get it. It's so easy to write off the findings of a published article or case study as not applicable to you personally. Nonetheless, I hope that my experience can be valuable to someone and emphasize psychosis as a real possibility. Being psychotic was living out an inescapable series of the scariest experiences of my life, back to back to back to back. I was trapped in a bad acid trip for days on end. I scared and hurt the people that care about me. Luckily, I'm doing better now because some people never fully recover. I'm still working with professionals to try and figure out what exactly triggered the break. I have a hunch the cause was the modafinil itself and side effects like sleep deprivation. Stimulants are risky because psychosis is clearly linked to dopamine and they can cause a break without warning or misuse. I have a history of stimulant therapy and some abuse, all-nighters on Adderall, compulsively redosing Ritalin, phentermine, cocaine, etc. I never showed psychotic symptoms of any level of severity before this episode. I was even clued in enough to identify coke ideas or drug-fueled plans telling stories, feelings that will never come to fruition when people sober up. When the episode was most severe, it's hard to tell when exactly things started. I was also taking Lexapro, 300 milligrams of gabapentin as needed. I would substitute modafinil for my usual methylphenidate a few days a week. I might be misdiagnosed, but as of now, my med chart says ADHD and postpartum depression/mood disturbance. Also, the episode ended gradually as I quit taking any drugs. My experience is rare, but pay vigilant attention to any changes in your thoughts and behaviors. You could see patterns and changes by journaling your moods and stuff. I can retrospectively see signs of instability that could have been brought up to my psyche earlier and prevented a lot of suffering.